Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School Board of Education at 6:57 p.m. on January the 22nd. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Tavera?
Here.
All right, and first up is our Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up on our agenda is approving of the agenda. If I can get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. We have an approved meeting agenda, and first up on that is special recognition and presentations and our trainee of the month, Principal Peterson.
Okay, one of the exciting parts of my job are when we get to honor students, and tonight we're gonna honor Demetrius Brooks, but we know him as Michi. Okay, so Michi, he currently is working right now at the Oak Hill Supportive Living Center. Oak Hill, yeah, you're doing a great job, buddy. So what has been brought to our attention about Michi is, one, he's a very hard worker and is always there with a tremendously positive attitude. He's always striving for excellence and loves starting new tasks within the program. So without further ado, I want to honor Michi as our trainee of the month.
All right, next up we have our December Athletes of the Month, Mr. Karolzak.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Very excited, and it's my privilege to announce our winners of our December Athletes of the Month. First, from the girls bowling team, our December Female Athlete of the Month is Claudia Salcido. Here to recognize Claudia is head girls bowling coach Julie Arias. Claudia?
There we go. Good evening. I am Julie Arias, head coach of the bowling team, and I am honoring Claudia here because she has shown a tremendous improvement over the past couple of years, but in the month of December alone, she has increased somewhere between 15 to 20 pins in average compared to last year. She did have an injury that she had at the beginning of the month where she fell on some ice, and she took one day off and refused to miss another day of practice despite that. So she did overcome that challenge and continued to push through to have an amazing amazing turnout in her matches up forward. She did a great job in the past couple of matches as well, increasing her average even more and almost qualifying in a couple of tournaments for a medal within the top 15. So congratulations to Claudia.
All right, for our male athlete of the month, this is not his first time winning it, so not a surprise that he's up here, but from the wrestling program, our December male athlete of the month is Alejandro Cordova, and here to recognize Alejandro is head wrestling coach Ken Filas. This is his fourth one, by the way. That's pretty crazy.
It may be crazy, but he's had a lot of success for a long time. So he's definitely earned every single one of these 4 awards that he's gotten. Month of December, there was a point in time where Alejandro went on a tear, winning 14 straight matches. He was the first Panther to win the 42-team Mid-States tournament up there in Wisconsin. He took his second placing at Dvorak this year. He's just this past weekend took third at the Lake County tournament, his second time of being all county as a wrestler. I tell you what, I'm looking so forward to seeing him in the regionals this next weekend, seeing how he does. He honestly, the sky's the limit for this guy moving forward. And I'm just, like I said, I'm super excited. And congratulations to Alejandro.
All right, next up we start communications to the board, and first on that is our organic life presentation. Dr. Gibbons.
Good evening, Board. As requested by the Board of Education, we are providing 3 updates a year regarding our food service program, including data with breakfast and lunch meals served. We are very pleased and honored to have Executive Vice President Eric Harlinski, as well as Executive Vice President Jose Gutierrez here, who were downstairs in the kitchen preparing our delicious meals and preparation for this evening. A couple of just high-level comments. First, as you look at our data for breakfast and lunch, we've seen an increase, which means more and more students are reaching out. Although we aren't Starbucks and some of the other names that I know the students really enjoy, the fact that they're going first to us as a primary food source is very telling, not only about the the quality of our program, but the quality of the personnel. Our Organic Life staff know the students, know their needs, and have connections. You see some of that in the data as well. One of the middle schools, there was a staff update, and they reflected reaching out. Anybody they could have commented on, they did comment on the lunch ladies, which is always nice to hear. And secondly, as we prepared for this evening's dinner, it was exciting to hear just rumblings of, I've heard we're having this, I heard we're having that, I put in a request for that. Typically in my position, we hear things about what we don't want to be eating. And so it's very exciting that we're all excited about the types of meals and the quality of the items being served. So we appreciate them. We appreciate all they do for us, their partnership from the scoreboard to just being here, boots on the ground for services. I'd like to personally and publicly thank them and then hand it over to them for the update number 2 of 3 this evening.
Good evening. Dr. Kibbins, thank you for the kind words. It's always a pleasure to be here and very excited to update you on what we have thus far. So I always like to begin the presentations with an update on participation of meals served. So here you see the numbers for breakfast from August through the end of December. Here we have the participation of lunch from August through the end of December. Each month had different number of serving days, so you see the fluctuation in the numbers. But on the next slide, we have a total. So here you see the total meals served August through December this year versus August through December of last year. Overall, we've increased slightly over 29,000 meals in just these few months alone. In comparison to last year, there's almost a 10% increase in breakfast and a little over 4% in lunch, which is really nice to see. Participation on EEC snacks, we've done almost 18,000 just from August through December alone. Supper program is going very well. We're almost at 19,500 just from August through December alone. We had a little Halloween fun during October. The students had a little slushy cups, which count as half a cup of fruit, but it is 100% fruit. It's a frozen slushy, so we always like to introduce fun themes when possible. This is what Dr. Kibbins was referring to. This was very sweet from Round Lake Middle School. Our lunch ladies were nominated for Staff of the Month, and there were some really sweet words that the kids had mentioned that they shared with us. The print is a little hard for me to see, but I'm sure you can see it. They're just thankful for really sweet little things, smiles on their faces and the food that we serve them. So it was very heartwarming to read these sweet comments. During the Early Education Center groundbreaking event, we had provided refreshments and snacks. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner, we had customized a Round Lake cookie in the shape of a shovel that was created by students that shovels. So we recreated it and we customized the cookies. So that was fun. We had some winter wonderland fun with hot chocolate bar during the chorus and drama play this year. Student of the Month breakfast for the Round Lake High School students. More caterings and fun themes. And more caterings. So we've been busy with that. And that's all we have to report tonight. We'll definitely have more to update in May at our third update for the school year. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you have any other schools that you do the suppers with?
Supper program? I believe we do. Jose?
And the reason why I ask is because the amount of numbers that you have for a high school is actually unique.
Yes, we actually do supper at other school districts. And I do see the high school Has a lot of participation in supper. When I see the numbers and the students coming in, that can only, it's just a testament of the need and the fact that it's a good program because we have a lot of students coming to participate. And in comparison, off the top of my head, I can name a district down in south suburbs that does supper. They do maybe 50 meals a day. Where here we're doing, 3 times that. Thank you.
I just really like to recognize Melissa Bungie, who's our food service director on site here. She's in the audience. She really promotes the supper program. She has a couple of stations set up throughout the building. So at the end of the day, when students are going to a practice or to an enrichment activity, they can't help but walk by and get some meals. And we've also partnered very strongly with the athletic director to make sure that those students who are training in advance have that additional supper.
Any additional questions, comments?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for dinner. It was wonderful. And as a parent of a student who spends a lot of their time after school in activities, I appreciate the supper program. And I did bring home mac and cheese from Thursday to my 2021 graduate. And he asked me, he thought I got it at a restaurant, asked me where it was from, and I said, that's school lunch. And he was a little
It was salty.
salty about the fact that that wasn't the lunch that he got when he went here. So from a former student, he was impressed.
Thank you. That's very kind. I love to hear things like that.
Hearing nothing else, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
All right, next up in the agenda is our strategic plan monthly update for January. Everything was spelled out. Dr. Mendoza, any updates?
Just, you've read it, but just want to draw your attention to A3. We continue to try to work very closely with CLC to expand our dual credit offerings. That's directly related to the presentation that Jess Crone shared with you. I don't know, I think it was before the break, right? B1, I want to thank Dr. Steffen. She's done a tremendous job at leading our collaborative curriculum adoption processes. You'll be hearing more about it. We're pretty close to wrapping up math. That will be brought in front of the board. It will walk you through the process we use, the input, how we made decisions. Just really, really good feedback. DLA adoption for K-5, English Language Arts. No acronyms. We're already well into that, and we're also doing the Spanish Language Arts. We're into that too. I feel really, really good. We're going to get a really good outcome, but the process we've used, I think our teachers, we're trying to be very responsive to what they told us about teacher input, teacher voice, teacher agency, helping make decisions. So I want to draw attention to that. We're very close to bringing forward a recommendation for B2 with our special education audit. You've heard me talk about that before, and obviously you're part of the strategic planning process. I don't want to ruin it, but I've seen the drafts of the graphic for the subcommittee. They're really good. I'm just thankful we have somebody at our table that is just, it's always good to have somebody who has that artistic eye and background, and I think we're really going to get a result. And I would say, I don't know, you don't obviously don't answer it now, but I think it's been a really good, I've had fun doing it. I do like strategic planning in general, but the Portrait of a Graduate piece has added a layer, I think, to the process. It's been really good. So those were the comments for the update, but all the other goals we've provided you, and so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the administration? Hearing none, thank you very much. Next up is the review of the disposal of materials memo. Any questions for the administration in regards to what we are disposing of? Hearing none there, we will move down to the FOIA report. Any questions in regards to the information contained there within? Hearing none there. Next up is contracts under 1,000. We had none to report on that, which will now move us to public comment. As always, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting electronic public comment forms. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and electronic public comments will be accepted up until noon on the day of the regularly scheduled meeting. The public commenter will be contacted to confirm identity, and once confirmed, the electronic public comment will be provided to all board members in written form. A link to the electronic public comment form can be found online. We did not have any electronic public comment this meeting. Do we have any local public comment? Hearing none, we will now move on then to the superintendent's report and Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Board President, Mr. Francisco, and Board of Ed. Just wanted to talk a little bit about 2 items. First is our Visiting International Teachers Program. Want to thank Human Resources for organizing, managing this, especially with our EL department. But this year marks the district's 2nd year of hosting Visiting International Teachers from Spain. The education advisor of the Embassy of Spain recently visited the district to meet with the Director of Human Resources and Multilingual Education. He shared that the feedback he's received from our visiting international teachers has been very positive. Specifically, the teachers value the support they've received through their transition in our district and to life in the United States. They're impressed with the guidance provided during the summer, as well as during the school year through embedded programs such as mentorship, coaching, and daily collaboration time. The Round Lake Area School District 116 community, everyone from administrators to specialists to mentors has gone above and beyond to establish trusting relationships and provide classroom support. As such, the Spain Ministry of Education has invited our district to participate in the Visiting International Teachers from Spain recruitment, taking place in person in Madrid, Spain, April 15th through 21st. So one of the things, so here, the best form of advertising is this, is the individuals themselves talking to the people they know. I'll be bringing something back for the board's consideration regarding attendance at this event. We're able to do it electronically through Zoom, but to be frank, I don't think that's the best way to do it. We actually would like to send a district representative, and there's certain things we need to follow board policy wise, but we'll be bringing something back to you. But it's been really positive. It's another recruiting opportunity. Again, Christy talked earlier. Those of you that weren't in finance, they need additional support in human resources, but it's because of programs like this. We are running a human resource office. We're not running like the old school traditional personnel offices where we're just pounding through reports. We're really trying to make it a good experience. So I want to thank the teaching and learning department and human resources. We've had some issues with weather recently, but I'd want to publicly thank the members of our ops and transportation teams for their hard work over the last couple of weeks, given all of the weather we have experienced. It looks like we've got a full year in 2 weeks. Teams were on site over the weekend, January 13th through the 15th, to help prepare our buses, properties, and lots. School custodians also came in over the weekend to clear sidewalks and entrances to assure that the path to school was safe to walk on, conducting building checks to be sure the heat was functioning as expected, and that there were no issues with water pipes. When our students returned on Wednesday, all of the buses started, which I don't know if you remember, 5 years ago maybe, there were issues all over the county with not having buses not start even when they're plugged in. The lots look great and the buildings are ready. Donations, we received winter coats for Round Lake High School. The donation was made by the United Way of Lake County. So that concludes the superintendent's report.
And Dr. Mendoza, I'll piggyback on that thanking of the operations team that while we may have had some issues when it came to pipes and all of that, that we were on top of it all. We did not have the major closings. We were in our buildings, which we're thankful for compared to some other districts around us that were not so lucky. So definitely thank you on that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the board is even aware of this, but we actually have temperature guidelines that are in the contract. And I always say when something like that is in a contract, it's probably because sometime in the past something happened and we didn't listen. And so I think it's good that they're in there, and also want to credit Mary and the team. Literally, I think it was even on a Sunday, maybe Brian Peterson and Andy are walking through this building, taking temperature in classrooms. And I thought it was going to be, we were in really good shape based upon the temperature outside. So, nothing's perfect, but, just really credit to the team. So just wanted to kind of say that too. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions in regards to the superintendent's report? Hearing none, we will now move to the finance committee update.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. We had a pretty full agenda for finance. As you saw earlier, we had the Organic Life presentation. Again, thank you to Organic Life for a great dinner tonight and for the continued support for our students. Later on the agenda, I'll, again, when this item comes up, as I have in past, I'll give the feedback regarding the Village of Round Lake Beach intergovernmental agreement. And not to spill any fun, but we'll have the fiscal 23 audit that will come up later as well. And then again, under new agenda items, I'll review the second step contract, which leads me to the Embrace contract, which will be coming in our February regular board meeting. The Embrace contract is regarding our special education department. Currently, our special education department for our IEPs, our individual education programs, we use called eSped. eSped is going to be no longer, so this will be sunsetting. And with that, we need to have a new program, which is called Embrace. This program is utilized by other districts and is really the software of choice in Illinois. It does have Spanish translation. This is actually going to be less than the eSped. The eSped is about $24,000. The Embrace will be $16,000, and this is budgeted through IDEA funds. Some of the questions that finance had was, well, there are some things with the contract that we're reviewing that they're getting back to us on. So just so you know, there are things regarding the contract with the interchange of student data and that secured file transfer protocol, SAPA compliance, that stuff. So that is being viewed, and that's why it'll come back in February. But also asking our teachers who will be using this program, have they had an opportunity to review it and how do they feel about it? And no puns intended, but they are embracing this software. So I took that from Dr. Mendoza, so thank you, Dr. Mendoza. So you'll see that come forward in February. But again, we just asked if also there was other software programs that they even vetted, but this is the one really being utilized in Illinois. So that is what we're going with. Next is the high school spring musical contract, Mamma Mia, that will come up later as well. And then we received an update regarding the high school sound system. As you know, the high school has put in a request wanting to update the main gym sound system. We had received one quote previously that was about $172,000. We did receive a second quote, and again, these are quotes, these are not bids, we have not gone out to bid, these are just quotes. This second quote has a base of $190,000, and all the add-ons that we've kind of talked about before is another about $266,000, bringing us almost up to $460,000 for that sound system. Yeah, don't worry, we're not moving forward with that one. It's okay, Scott. I think he's choking. So we had some conversations regarding the sound system. We have one is about 176. We have this one that's about 460. But again, these are quotes, and we haven't done this like we did the high school theater sound system, where we had a consultant come in and give us a very specific spec on the needs and what we need. So we asked Mr. Kozak to kind of go back and what is that cost going to look like if we brought in a consultant to do that? Because using these numbers, even though one is at the very far end of the spectrum that we would not consider, and one within some realms of possibility, what that might be. Also, knowing Dr. Mendoza sharing that our budget assumptions will come forward in February. We also know we have a construction project already well underway that will need to be completed or will be completed, and that's the project at the Early Education Center. So there's a few things that finance is considering and kind of juggling at where this may or may not fall this year. So I know that wasn't very clear, but hopefully that was kind of clear. And then, as you, Dr. Mendoza alluded to earlier, regarding human resources and the add of a human resource specialist. Again, the need within human resources, as Dr. Mendoza mentioned as well. This is a department that has many mandates that they have to follow. One that I know the board is probably most familiar with is Fate's Law. That does require a lot of interaction and a lot of protocols have to be followed. And as Dr. Mendoza said, different systems that our HR specialists, human resources specialists have to maneuver and manipulate through, there is a need to add that specialist. This would come forward in the next meeting, and it is supported by the finance committee. The next thing we had was the e-hallway pass update. You might recall the high school and the 2 middle schools brought forward an electronic hall pass system to do away with the paper pass, so they could better manage students out of class when they leave class and where they're going. So they brought a very preliminary information. Finance had asked for better data, though they just really started using this through the 2 middle schools and the high schools buildings in January. So we're asking them to bring this back in March, where they actually have some data that we can share with the board. And then some of the things they had listed with logon issues, that those could be addressed and how those might be addressed from the software company. And then just kind of speaking with, you heard the Organic Life presentation, and this is under informational items, food service bid that will be coming up. So we will be going out to bid for food service shortly. And that is it for finance, Mr. DeVera. Nope. That's it. Any questions?
I have one. When they come back with the e-hall pass information, is it possible? Because I was looking at the info. One of the constraints that they have is like students who have certain situations where they need a hall pass, like at will. Like for example, someone coming back from the hospital who might need it for the rest of the semester or the rest of the year, they might get a paper pass. Well, not even that, like an emergency pass to be able to go to student services, like, coming back sort of thing. Other districts that use the system still have to sometimes have those paper passes, but are like they still have agendas and things like that, so the kid has it laminated on them. I was just wondering if that's something they're seeing here as well.
We'll bring it back. That's a really good, I don't think we even discussed that, did we?
No, well, that was, since, you mentioned you reviewed their presentation, it didn't give a lot of detail, which is why we asked, and I understand they only started utilizing this across the whole building 3 weeks ago, so there's necessarily a whole lot of data to share. But those were the questions, like, so where are you writing the hall passes to? Are you seeing a trend anywhere? What, because as you saw in that presentation, teachers can issue their passes and students can issue their own pass. So we really wanted to really dive into that data and see what is happening. So we can definitely add that though.
I would agree, 3 weeks is not going to be enough to see that data. We use that where I work, so a couple more months that they'll have that for sure.
We're hoping March we can bring this back and have some data.
but one of the things I see is there's no way to do like anyone on a 504 plan or an IEP plan, anyone who has one of those kinds of special passes, there are none of those in this program.
Okay, that's good to know. So we will. Okay, that's good to know. So we'll definitely add that to that presentation. Thank you for that.
Any additional questions for finance? Thank you for that update. Next, we will move to some approvals.
I need a motion to approve the January 8th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report for $1,126,871.51. The previous motions report for $216,286.71. The December 2023 Treasurers Report, the December 2023 P-Card Report, the January 22nd, 2024 Employment Report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, new business. I need a motion to approve the proposed regular board meeting schedule for the 2024-2025 school year as listed.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Just want to put up there, thank you, administration, for the update. We do have the 2 meetings in August. So thank you for let's getting that one added so that we can absolutely be on top of that. Very much appreciated there. Hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries, and we have meeting dates. All right, next up is the board committee appointments. This one comes up, we do it on an annual basis. At this moment, I don't have any changes that I necessarily want to make, but I am going to ask the administration, let's bring this back in the June meeting as well, so that we can reconvene on it and make a decision about having our committee assignments. That way, we're setting our committee assignments more along the school year calendar. So if we do make a change, it would be at the beginning of the next school year. No point in making changes right in the middle of a current calendar year. So if I'm going to respectfully hold everybody in their current positions. But what we would ask is to bring this same agenda item back up in June so that we can re-review. Hearing no additional questions for that, thank you. We will now move on to the musical contract.
I need a motion to approve the RLHS, Round Lake High School, musical for Mamma Mia for the spring in the dollar amount of $2,745.00.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve, hold on, wrong one, sorry. Yes, I need a motion to approve entering into a contract with the Committee for the Children for the amount of $14,013 to be paid out of Title I funds.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler.
So, thank you. So this is part of the second step contract. As I mentioned, this was at finance earlier today. So some of the questions we had as you see, it's regarding SEL or social emotional learning. And this is for our kindergarten through fifth grade. Some of the questions, or one of the main questions we have is with finances. We've seen Branching Minds and the MTSS, the multi-tiered support system, kind of come forward. How do these all integrate, or do they integrate? Because we're seeing a lot of software programs come forward in these efforts to support social and emotional learning. So we just asked how they integrate or how that foundation builds. So Dr. Apgar went over that with us and how they support each of our different levels that we service here as a unit district. One of the other things is, again, also going through what Branching Minds does, and then MTSS, the multi-tiered system. Just kind of going through that. That was really our question is, we see all these come forward, how do these all work together? And he covered that very nicely.
I have a quick question. Is there a reason we're only going through fifth grade and not going all the way through eighth grade with it? Sorry to put you on the spot.
At the secondary level, social emotional learning is delivered through homeroom, and it is believed that programming beyond fifth grade provided through second step may not be as developmentally appropriate. That's why our social workers, Ms. Farragon Wilson and her team, develop the curriculum for the homeroom.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
Great question.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve a 5-month intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Round Lake Beach, commencing February 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2024, for a total cost of $1,250.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett.
So again, as mentioned, this was on the finance agenda earlier this evening. As you all are aware, with the construction project happening at the EEC, we are down that building and that space for some of our administration. So this is to provide an extra space for our administrators or those who need to have that meeting space. So this currently is during the construction phase of the Early Education Center. But as you know, we still have a lot of moving pieces happening right now. If they feel they need to extend that, which we hope not, but if they need to extend it after that time frame, they would bring this back. It says, it's $1,250. It's $250 each month.
And what are we renting from the village again?
It's I think they call it a community room, right? It's a community room that they have in the village hall. So it's a public meeting space.
Okay, and how much are we using? What is the use of it? Are we using it daily, hourly?
Well, I don't know about
Well,
hourly,
and
but daily.
that's my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the cadence of how often you'll use it.
So what I can share is the existing space that we have at Old National Bank, since my office is right around that corner, is constantly filled with either district meetings or individual group meetings. We're working on curriculum, all types of things. We're just stretched for meeting space, and we're finding that people are resulting to Zoom to have meetings versus going in person. So we really feel that this additional space would provide flexibility as we're looking at starting the partner schools and really deep diving into some other meetings, even district level meetings that we need to have, which is why it's a 5-month agreement.
And the Zoom meetings aren't able to work. I'm looking at it from, I'm in a corporate environment where literally every meeting I have is in Zoom because we all work in different locations across the country. And including our IT teams, which are collaborative teams. So that's why I'm just a little curious.
Can I just a couple high level things? Like I don't have my calendar out in front, but we're doing a lot of involving teachers in decisions and planning and process. And just to give you an example, right now alone, we've got 4 adoptions going on at the same time, all of which include at least 20 to 25 staff members. Functionally, depending on what the meeting is, Zoom does serve a purpose, but it can't all the time. Personally, I prefer in-person meetings, but for example, our cabinet meets every Tuesday morning between 8 and 11:30. We're able to meet in Zoom. I actually prefer to meet in person, but I don't have meeting space. And instead of using the community room at the bank, we can't actually use that because they're doing like curriculum adoptions. So we have really tried to be flexible. So I don't think this is a binary discussion. I actually think even after we lease the new place, we're still going to have to conduct Zoom meetings because we also don't have space in our buildings. So I would love to be able to come up to the high school and meet, but at the high school, there's not enough room. And then we run into issues with parking. So we're just limited in space. So I agree. We do use Zoom when we can, but it doesn't necessarily meet every need when you're trying to just think about, for example, to be honest, think of strategic planning in Zoom. Try to do something like that. We do a lot of processes that engage people. They have to meet in groups. So just high level.
Thank you.
I was just going to jump in real quick too, Mike. Let's give an example with the curriculum adoptions. The vendors have all provided the actual complete teacher kits. So when we're in the space, they have the teacher's edition, the student's edition, and all of these different actual pieces that we wouldn't be able to do. We actually debated because we had one scheduled on one of our remote days and we were like, well, do we do it? And it just would really change the experience because they wouldn't be able to look at what they'd have in front of them as a teacher. So, but we do use Zoom a lot too.
But we still have the one room that's already in at the bank now. So I mean, theoretically, those meetings that need to be in person can be scheduled in person versus just having an extra room that we're paying for.
Yes, that's true. There's just with 4 of those going on and other types of meetings like Don's referenced, it becomes really tight where we're having to reschedule things and move things around when in person would be a better setup.
Yeah, and I would say, and I say this so respectfully, we wouldn't ask for the room if we didn't need it. I mean, we have tried up to this point in time to do all of these things like remotely, and it just gets challenging. I mean, we have 950 employees and we basically have one. I didn't even get into like the PD and professional development that Liz tries to do with mentors and mentees. So I just want to thank Pam. We don't view this as a long-term solution, which is why we're only doing 5 months. So.
And the cost is just their cost for any kind of cleaning or materials. So $250 per month certainly is a cost, but it is not exorbitant compared to other market conditions for rental space in the area.
And just remind me, what are we using the church sanctuary part for?
So how many, what do we have, 10 staff members in there? Yeah,
In the sanctuary?
it's being used, it's full, the whole area is full, both up and down. So yeah, we have the sanctuary piece, I think we have 11 people in there, and they actually have created walls by using file cabinets and like just natural barriers to try to create space, and they all have headphones on, while they're trying to work. So people are being super flexible. Is that a fair description? I think you walk in there, you try to talk, everyone's got their headphones on, so.
We have 12 people in the old sanctuary. We have about 30 that are working downstairs. Most of the administrative assistants are in one small area. So I think it's the old, what we used to call Calvary is quite full. And we do have 2 small conference rooms, but today we tried to have a meeting and we couldn't even all sit around the table. They're just not very large spaces.
Thank you. Any additional questions other than mine? Sorry, guys. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
No.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is the fiscal 23 audit. At each one of your place settings, I call it the gift of finance in front of you. This is prepared by the Board of Education auditors. Their name that we originally hired them under was Eater Casella, and they've done some partnership collaboration, so I'm going to practice her name, Sazian. It was hard. With that being said, there's just a couple of highlights from my office that I really want to share with you. First of all, my team that really assists with this, even though the auditors come on site, it is really the work of Tina Kostova, Reggie Stager, Diana Aguilar, Jody Rogers, and Carolyn Johnson, all hands on deck for different components of this. As you look at the audit, it is a no opinion audit. One of the things that I shared at finance is usually in education, we don't like to not have an opinion, but in the finance world, we like to not have an opinion. So the fact that there's no opinion is gold stars for us. Also on the inside front cover, paper clipped to the inside cover of your document. Providing to the board as I share at levy time or budget time our financial profile score. And so as you look at the document all the way back from 2003 all the way through 2022, and in finance world we're always a year behind when it comes to reporting financial data, and we're always planning a year ahead. So we're all over the place in terms of years, but the past 2 years has been a very strong 3.70, which is recognition status. That's really a credit to the board and the district for maintaining those financial expenditures and revenues. On the flip side of that, we have our estimated financial profile summary, and it's estimated that we will again be awarded another 3.70. I don't know how much in detail you've looked at the information here, but there are 5 main components that we are assessed on for that profile score. The first one being fund balance to revenue ratio. The highest score you could receive as a district is a 4. Round Lake School District received a 4. Expenditures to revenue ratio, the highest score you could receive is a 4. Round Lake School District earned a 4. Days cash on hand, highest score possible is a 4. We earned a 3. A percentage of short-term borrowing, a maximum remaining, highest score possible is a 4. Round Lake School District earned a 4. And percentage of long-term debt margin remaining, highest score available is a 4. We received a 2. I will tell you, in most districts I've been in, that's a very common number there. In order to do the business that we do and maintain our facilities, we need some long-term debt. Our debt is very healthy from my perspective. We've refinanced our debt when and where we can to support our taxpayers as well as our district. So some debt is good to have, and that's very confident in the position we're at. So again, want to celebrate not only our audit, but also celebrate the fine work that everyone's done. We've talked a lot about partnerships this evening. Our auditors are no different. We have Sheridan Jurgensen here. She is a partner with the firm. She's been with the firm for many, many years. And I will tell you, our auditors are just not friends to us during the audit process when we start in the spring of the year. We are constantly calling them, making sure that we're doing best practice with accounting, with coding, with how things should be funded. When we had our audit call on Friday with our finance committee members, members, I just threw in another question. So when we receive our philanthropic donation, are we thinking we should code it here or there? So it's just nice to have that lifeline long term to keep us best practice, to keep us in a place that our community can be proud of the financial work we're doing. So without any further ado, I will hand it over to Sheridan. And again, I'm most publicly appreciative of her and her work of her team.
Well, good evening. My name is Sheridan Jurgensen. As she said, I am one of the audit partners and have been overseeing the audit here for several years. I'll just spend a few minutes and go over the results of the audit. A lot of it was already discussed, but I'll just highlight a few things. The first thing in the audit report is our opinion, and it's an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can have under accounting standards. It also talks in the opinion about internal controls. And while we don't give an opinion on internal controls, we spend a significant amount of time looking at them. And we're not only looking at written policies and procedures, but we're actually sitting down with the people that are processing payroll, processing AP, to make sure that they're following those policies and procedures, as well as making sure there's proper approval, authorization, and that one person doesn't have too much control in one area, and just good checks and balances. And so through that, I had no issues, and there's just good controls in place throughout the various accounting or auditing processes. The second part that I wanted to highlight in the audit report is the management discussion and analysis. It starts on page 5, and I just highlight that. If you don't really look at anything else in the audit report, I would recommend that you review that. It's just, I think, 5-6 pages, gives you kind of a highlight of what happened during the year, some significant changes in the financials, variances, and kind of why that happened. So it's just a little bit more user-friendly of a summary of what happened financially during the year at the district. Then it goes into the financial statements. There's 2 sets of financial statements. The first one is the government-wide, and that's more a long-term outlook statement. It starts on page 13, so I won't really highlight anything there. But then starting on page 15 is the fund financial statements, which just shows the results of each of the funds as of June 30th. Down on page 17 and 18, that shows the income and expenses for each fund. And you'll see for the year, there was an increase of $4.7 million. The majority of that came from IMRF, which increased by 2.1, and transportation, which increased by 3.5. And so you can see across there just the changes in the various funds. After that is the footnotes. It just gives you a lot more information on and details on the numbers that are in the financial statements. There was a new standard that was implemented this year that's discussed in the it's discussed in the footnotes. It's related to subscription-based IT agreements. So that's something that we looked at and just determined if there's anything that needed to be recorded differently under the standard. There was nothing of significance this year that needed to be changed, but that is something that we'll look at every year going forward. Then the only other thing that we do issue as part of the audit, which is a separate document, is the single audit report. And this is the testing we do on your federal awards. And so we are looking, this year we looked at ESSER and the student nutrition or child nutrition grants that you receive. And we're not only looking at transactions, making sure they're appropriate to the budget that went to ISB, but there's a lot of compliance requirements for those grants. So just making sure the district is complying with all of those, and all the proper reporting is going back to ISB. And there was no issues or findings related to that audit. So overall, very good news to report, but I will, of course, answer any questions you have.
No questions. I just wanted to share with the board, as Dr. Kippens and you had alluded, Mr. DeVere and I spent Friday afternoon with Dr. Kippens and the auditors via a phone call, going in greater detail into the report that you have in front of you, and their audit, the procedures, the cooperation of the district, as mentioned, procedures and policies that we have that support what they do in the business office. And again, always happy to report where we're at.
Any areas of opportunities?
Areas,
Any areas that require improvement or like they don't have a plan for, anything like that?
no, I mean, a long time ago, we had an area of opportunity with journal entries, but that has long been addressed. And that was more when, Bill's name, Mr. Johnston, sorry, forgot the name. Mr. Johnson was here. So that's not been an issue since that was addressed.
Hearing no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll just add more for the report. It's good to have this on hand. I know it's really easy to take this home and throw it up on the shelf, but it is. I mean, I keep it at the ready for myself, obviously for different reasons as a finance chair. But if you hadn't taken the time, I encourage you to read. Our letter here. It's labeled introduction section. It has the letter and it gives you that historical perspective of the district. And just to point out that Dr. Kivens took the opportunity to update it regarding our change into the partner school model and the constructions happening at the early education center. So I just wanted to point that out to the board.
Do we have a motion on this one, or does that come back at the next meeting?
Yes, sorry, thank you for that. And with all that great information, I need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 audit as presented.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, we are to positive occurrences.
Yeah, for me, the strategic plan with the students has been gold. Those students have been so stinking impressive. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that one. The student participation has been exemplary. Don't know why we ever did it without them before. That's just a no-brainer. I would love to, as we continue to do these, to have more and more of that. To me, really the voices I want to hear are the student and the parents in those meetings. So it's been absolutely great. Everybody else is being quiet.
I was saying, I'm sure as you saw on some of the social media posts that they've had some cheer competitions. It's really the cheer season is culminating to an end with sectionals this Saturday or Sunday. I think Sunday. But again, it's always a good showing by Round Lake. Cheer is a very competitive field, but we do come in there and we do hold our own, and we've done a great job this year, especially with having a new JV coach. They've done well.
And I'll just throw in there the wrestling. It's much like cheer. It's coming down to the final wire. We got 3 meets this week: Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Then the weekend off, and then they'll have IHSA regionals the following weekend. But the one that we really are extremely positive about is on Friday, girls wrestling regional. We'll be hosting it here. First time, that'll be the first time that we've had IHSA girls regionals ever held, and we'll be hosting one of them. So definitely excited to be there and be part of that. All right, hearing nothing else on positive occurrences, we'll go to future agenda items.
I had one. I was curious, what goes into the planning for an e-learning day for teachers and administration? And then what are the requirements and expectations for the staff during an e-learning day?
That's easy. We actually have a booklet, and so it's easy to take that, transfer it to a slide deck. The other thing we actually started discussing recently is I think there are going to be times when we actually can get staff in the building and we need to figure out synchronous. We don't really have that outlined, but yes, we'll bring that back for the board.
Bless you. And then just piggybacking on that, kind of in the same vein, just what makes your decision, Dr. Mendoza, versus calling it a snow day versus an e-learning day versus all of that? What is that guideline? What are we focusing on there? I definitely know that we want to make sure that we're getting as much instructional as we can, so I get that, but just kind of laying that out for us a little bit.
No problem. We'll weave that into the same thing.
Any additional on future agenda? All right, hearing none, I think we got one last approval for some closed session minutes.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the December 18th, 2023 regular meeting closed session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Which now brings us to, I need a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following: employment matters 5 ILCS 120/2C1, real estate matters 5 ILCS 120/2C5, and closed meeting minutes 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. That will take us into closed session, and that convenes our open session for tonight. So at 8:04 p.m., we're done with open session. Thank you very much, everyone, for being online. We will see everyone again in a couple of weeks for our next regularly scheduled meeting, and have a great evening.